Hi, my name is Michael Gilmore and welcome to Whiz-Bang's blog. Today's going to be a little bit different from the typical Saturday musings that I normally would do, or my weekend musings. Today I've decided to tackle a topic which is impacting the world, and one which is a tremendous challenge. If you remember the previous week, I took a look at the principles of my life that I run my life under, which is truth, trust, and learning, and how important they are and how they interact in different aspects of my own thinking and behavior. I'll continue that series the following week, but right now I'm going to interrupt with something where I debated about whether I would actually write about or speak about this particular topic. There's some of this video I'm actually going to read because I find the topic which is challenging and very, very difficult for many, many people. And hopefully it's one which I can address and to share with you in love. And that's the most important thing, is as an expression of love from this Australian to you, wherever you're watching this. Just with my principles, I find that principles are meaningless unless they really can do something and interact at a very visceral level with another person. Yeah, there's one thing for sure, is that principles are meaningless, and then they can become self-consuming, in fact. As you become self-centered of, these are my principles and these are what I'm going to be doing moving forward to move my life forward. Well, the reality is we're a part of a much larger family, and this larger family is called humanity. So I was debating whether I would tackle this particular topic I'm about to open up. And I was really inspired by the character of John F. Kennedy in the movie 13 Days. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a tremendous movie. And the character of John F. Kennedy, he said, there's something immoral when men and women of good conscience remain silent. I don't plan on remaining silent any longer. He also said later on that the hottest places in hell are reserved for those who in time of moral crisis preserve their neutrality. I do not plan on preserving my neutrality any longer. So what I want to speak to you about, I'd like to open up with what happened several weeks ago to my wife and I. We're sitting in our living room, as we do. We've just had a nice dinner, and we sat up and we decided to watch the news. Some people would say it's the horror movie, the 6:30 news. But we sat down and we watched the news, and there, being portrayed across our television into our very living room, was a man gasping for breath. I remember just watching that of George Floyd, and just of seeing this fellow human being and his pain palpably sort of filled our room in Melbourne, Australia here, as he cried out for his mother. And my wife and I, we looked at each other and we thought, what is going on here? This guy was just crying out. And 8 minutes and 46 seconds later, he's no longer with us. He's no longer a part of humanity. You see, I actually wasn't seeing a black man dying before my eyes. I was seeing another human being crying out for help for those who should be providing it. And I found it really, really difficult. The shock that both Rose and I felt were watching was indescribable, but it can't be anything compared to the trauma of George Floyd's loved ones must be going through at this time. It's just, I couldn't even think about it. See, I may, in this particular video, stumble over some of my words. I do apologize for that, and if in any sort of way I offend anyone, but it was something that really, I don't like to say it resonated, but it impacted me physically to see this, and it was difficult. It was incredibly difficult to see. What has shocked me since then is the politicization of the passing away of another human being at the hands of another. That has just horrified me. And to me, the politicization is not just US-centric, it is globally. Yes, things of saying, like we've seen people march on streets and all that sort of stuff, and that could be good to get the attention of the various leaders and authorities, and necessary in many cases, as we've seen in the civil rights movement in the 60s, particularly in the US then. We saw rioting and looting paraded across our televisions once again. We've seen the authorities and the establishment exert undue force in circumstances. We've seen leaders be silent or throw gasoline on the fire which is already burning across nations. Look, I can understand the rage, the hurt, the anguish, but you know what? These emotions will never fully satisfy. The cry for justice must be at the heart of every person who watched the news the night of the broadcast. To me, the only answer is love. And love is what truly overcomes evil. It's not anything else. It's you may say, well, all you need is love, as the Beatles would say, and it sounds so flippant. But there is a strength and a resilience in love which can pull down dictators and destroy authoritarian regimes. So the question I found myself asking as I watched all this interplay across the last few weeks is, why do Black Lives matter? Why do they matter? I believe this question strikes the very heart of what it means to be human. Do we value not just Black lives, but life itself? The fact that we're highlighting at this point in time Black lives is vitally important. It's vitally important. But you know what? To me, it gets broader than that. It's life itself. Life itself is so important and so sacred. And are we prepared to stand up for not just Black lives, but all life? Because you know what? All life matters, regardless of our own skin color or political persuasions, or are we willing to call life sacred? And that strikes at the heart of the ecological movement. It strikes at the heart of what's happening right now around the world. It strikes the heart of our relationship with one another, from husband to wife, to parents to children, to grandparents. Is life sacred? Like, we've just gone through COVID-19, the lockdown here in Australia, and there's been a massive increase of domestic violence. Is your spouse or your partner that you have decided to share your life with, are they so flippant? Are they so unnecessary that you're willing to go along and assault them? Where one time you went along and you expressed your love for them as you've married them, or made that decision to be together, however that transpires, and the next minute you'd find yourself wanting to go along and lash out at them. Does their life really matter? To me, it's what it's all about. Life is sacred. You see, when I attended Sunday school many years ago, I learned this song, and I used to love this song. It said, It was all the children of the world. And some of you may even know this song. And if you don't, let me tell you, it encapsulates what I'm talking about. It says, red or yellow, black or white, they are precious in his sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world. It doesn't matter your race or creed. It doesn't matter your ethnicity or anything like that. Love is what's important. It doesn't even matter your religion. Love is really what's important. I think this simple song encapsulates how to respond to people that may be different to ourselves. And we should be responding in love. I looked in awe at just the response of the family over the years even, and more recently, of different ones where they've lost a loved one. And you look at the response and you think, oh my goodness, they're encouraging everyone to do exactly this. Respond in love. Respond in love. Don't respond according to a political manifesto or anything like that. Respond in love. See, love decrees that we need to value our differences and cherish all life. That's really what love says. Valuing differences. Are there bad people with different coloured skin in the world? Yeah, of course there are. Well, we saw some looters. Are they bad? Yes, they shouldn't be looting, right? But you know what? In World War II, we saw a person go along and decide to slaughter millions of people. His name was Adolf Hitler. Or Stalin massacred 20 million plus people. Some saying it's more likely 50 million. And Mao, he went along and executed 45 million in his Great Leap Forward policy. There's been horrendous acts committed by all sorts of ethnicities and colours and races. We saw the Hutus, was it in, I think it was in Ethiopia or something like that. I could be getting the countries wrong, but saw them. They massacred like was 1 million people with machetes. How do you answer that? Do you answer it with hate? Do you answer it with hate? And I look at the different world conflicts between people groups and things like that around the world, and I said to a friend of mine once, a little while ago, I said to him, the conflict's only going to stop under one of two things happens. One side commits genocide, with which case there's no one left to fight. Or someone says, I'm sorry, and the other side says, I forgive you. And then it's reciprocated. Yeah, I look at, for inspiration these sort of times, I look at none other than Martin Luther King. And I started reading some of his speeches, even today. And one of the lines really struck me in the speech, I Have a Dream speech. And it is, we're little black boys and black girls, and we able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. For we're all a part of humanity. That amazing orator, that amazing civil rights movement leader, that incredible person who saw beyond the color of skin into a future which was bright and hopeful for his own children. Makes me wonder sometimes, I reflect on George Floyd, whether we're descending into madness. In my own country of Australia, there's been atrocities and injustices committed against the Indigenous people of Australia. It's a crime that I didn't commit, but as a society we have an obligation towards those that carry the scars of these terrible events. Is it about money and reparations? Well, some of it can be. But you know what it's really about? It's about putting your arms around another human being because they're in pain. And not just giving you a there, it'll be all right, but really empathetically caring and showing that care. The measure of a society is not how we look after the able, but it's how we look after those that are hurting and unable to look after themselves. That's the measurement of a society. What sort of society do you want to be a part of? Do you want to be a part of a society which is always grasping, filled with hate, filled with a rhetoric which is all-consuming and antagonistic from one group to another? Or do you want to be a part of a society which is united, wholesome, loving, caring? What do you want to be a part of? Society is really formed from our individual relationships with one another. Do we really respect those around us? If we respect those around us, then maybe it's our community that needs a change. And then as our community changes, then our region changes, then our state changes, ultimately our nation changes, then once again the world changes, and the world changes for better, not for worse. I was speaking to a friend this past week, and he shared with me the fact that the sanctity of life can no longer be spoken about without you being branded a racist. What a sad state of affairs that our dialogue has fallen to if we cannot speak about one of the foundational expressions of love without being branded a racist. I just don't know how to deal with that, I must admit. To be able to express love and the sanctity of life and the sanctity of all life, the fact that we're highlighting Black Lives Matter now is so very important, because they're a community in pain. We need to show love in that circumstance because of the pain in their community. The only thing that can truly solve racism is when we view others through the lens of love. Love that forgives transgressions, embraces empathy, displays compassion, for love never fails. In all of history, we can look back, and there's one thing for sure: love never fails. No matter what your skin color, I would encourage you to have an open heart towards all people. Be a beacon of light in your community. Be a city upon a hill where other people look to and say and admire the way that you're able to go along and be transcendent in your love towards your fellow human being. One of the great things about the internet is we are citizens of the world. The internet is agnostic towards the color of our skin, but it's not agnostic towards how we express our love towards one another. Is our chats, Skypes and messages filled with vitriol? Is it burdened by hate and rage? Do we jump on Facebook and just rip each other to shreds because we can? Or our words a soothing balm over the hurts of those that have been wronged? What are we to our online community? Are we trying to build it up? I'm in the domain name industry. Are we trying to build each other up? Are we trying to care for each other? Well, when we jump in a forum, then we see it's our goal to stir the pot and to troll one another and do all sorts of horrible things. What are we trying to really do? It's our attitudes that shows what's in the core of our being. Is our core of our being love? And some people think love is weak, but it's not weak. It's very strong. As we saw, the likes of Gandhi brought the mighty British Empire to its knees through love. He transformed our entire nation through love. I want to just share a few quotes with you right now that really struck me that I read today. And they're from John F. Kennedy and also Martin Luther King. Two, like I said previously, two incredible men which I admire so much, who sadly both were assassinated. But you know what? Their words ring down to this day. JFK said, if a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few that are rich. Or let us not seek the Republican answer or the Democrat answer, but the right answer. Let us not seek to fix the blame for the past. Let us accept our responsibility for the future. So I think about that and I'm thinking, what's the future going to be? What do we need to really do to create a better future? Well, Martin Luther King said, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. What an amazing dream. That was his children he was having the dream for. He knew the struggle would go onwards as bitterness and contempt and bigotry continued in his generation, but he had a dream for his children and his children's children. Amazing man. May seem obvious, but love is the answer to all of the hate in this world. I was talking with a friend the other day, and sadly, it looks like it's very likely they've contracted COVID-19. He's in a really bad way. It was a difficult conversation. They're on the other side of the world, and I'm thinking to myself, will I ever see them again? Should I respond to him because of the color of his skin? Or should I show compassion, tenderness, and love? Should I show, dare I say, my humanity towards one that is suffering? We mustn't lose sight of the fact that you look at something like COVID-19, it doesn't care about political boundaries. It doesn't care about the color of your skin or any other bigotry that humanity can invent. It just quietly goes about slaughtering people one after another, disrupting families where children wake up without fathers or mothers or brothers or sisters, or wives are dead. I read that a startling statistic, there's like, whether 8 million people at the time I've done this video contracted it. And in the US alone, it was coming up to 120,000 people passed away. The world went to war for much less than that. And yet we seem to be at war against ourselves and our effort and zeal to ignore the fact we're fighting this unseen foe. Do I love my neighbor enough to stay at home? Do I love the people around me enough to stay in lockdown? Do I love my fellow countrymen, my fellow humanity enough that I can do whatever I can do to wash my hands, to be clean, to do all the things necessary to be able to prevent the onslaught from continuing? I'm looking at my own state of Victoria, and the cases went down to almost zero. It actually went to zero for a few days, but they're bumping back up again. Why? Fundamentally, the health officer really said, because people stopped loving. Stopped showing their love. They said, no, I can do that. I'm allowed to do that. It's my rights. Rights are fundamentally born out of love and are tempered by love. You know, it's a challenge. If you really want to make a difference, then show love to those around you. Don't point out faults. Right faults with love. It's easy to point out that an elderly person struggling with their groceries, help them out. It's easy to complain about a problem with young people in your neighborhood. Help out your local youth centre. It's easy to point the finger at someone else, but remember, as you do so, there's a bunch of fingers pointed back at you. It's easy to blame our government, but don't forget, it's we the people are the government. We the people. I remember many years ago I traveled to the US and I looked at those incredible documents in the National Archive, and I must admit, both my wife and I were in tears at just what it meant for them to write "we the people." So just recently in January this year, before a conference, I happened to be in Washington again, and I went back there. Why? Because I needed to see that documented again. Such a powerful statement of really what it is the government is all about. It's we the people. And if you look at those documents, they're born out of love. It's we. It's togetherness. It's us working together. I want to finish with something actually from the Bible. And it's this: if I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. So, I'd like you to think about this a little bit. Are you expressing love to those around you, to your fellow human being? Or are you expressing something different? When you go online, are you trolling? Or are you trying to be a soothing balm on the hurts of those, say, in a forum? Anyway, thank you for your time and have a great weekend.